Welcome everybody to the ranking of Doctor Who Season 9. Now just a couple of things really quickly. Firstly, obviously this is entirely my opinion. It is a very subjective ranking, and if your ranking doesn't align with mine, then that is absolutely 100% okay, so long as we are both having fun. Also, there's going to be some brief spoilers in this review, nothing too major, but if you're concerned about that, then maybe don't watch this one. But again, it's nothing too big. And with all that established, let's get started with this ranking of all 5 stories from Doctor Who Season 9. The Mutants was never really going to come anywhere other than last, to be honest. Now, it's not a bad story, and it does do some things right, but I think the ending in particular does detract from this one overall, and it doesn't do enough with its supporting cast and its premise to really be particularly interesting. I kind of like the setup, and I enjoy the way that it's played around with a little bit, but I do wish it had been developed more throughout as we went into these different situations with the Doctor, and I wish they'd just done more with it. That's the thing about this one, is it is good, but it goes on a little bit too long and doesn't do enough and has an ending that kind of detracts from what you've had up to that point. So it definitely could have been better than it was, but what you ultimately have here is a story that, while enjoyable, definitely is one of the weakest ones of the Pertwee era so far, and honestly on the weaker side of Doctor Who. And while this one is an enjoyable story, it's not particularly memorable. The Curse of Peladon is definitely a story that some people really enjoy, and I kind of see what's to like here. I enjoy the atmosphere to this one. It's got a different kind of setting to it. I don't think it does a lot with that, but I do enjoy just, the way this one is set up, both in terms of not knowing entirely what's going on, but also just like this castle I think is quite cool, and I like the Doctor and the companion Jo in this one. I think they work well together, but on the whole, this one gets less interesting the further you get into it. By the time you get to the end of it, which is only, 4 parts long, it's not doing particularly much. So while I do legitimately like the way this story starts, the further it goes, the less interested I become, and there's no particularly great villains or supporting cast. Alpha Centauri, I did find a little bit grating at first. I thought she was a little bit over the top, and she is, but I did come around to her and found her enjoyable. The Ice Warriors don't really do much, which is fine. It's just, you don't really have a great villain in place of them, so then you just have a story with no really memorable villains, which is kind of a shame, and the rest of it doesn't really keep it up. If you didn't have a great villain, but the rest of the story was legitimately engaging and good, that would be fine. But with this one, the rest of the story is just pretty entertaining. So what we have here is one that I do enjoy, but definitely could have been better. Day of the Daleks is interesting because it makes a lot of sense to bring the Daleks back in this sort of spectacular fashion for the 3rd season of the 3rd Doctor, because they haven't been around in a good bit, except it's not really a spectacular fashion, is it? They're just kind of there. This story doesn't really feel like it's markedly different because of their presence. You probably could have thrown any old villain in there and it would have worked just the same, and that's a shame because it's just, they're back after this sort of long hiatus, and you don't do a ton with them, because if you're going to bring back such a popular villain from Doctor Who, why not do anything with them, And it doesn't actually lessen the quality of the story. It's just kind of a shame that it's like, yeah, they're there, and the story itself is pretty good. I like this one. It's kind of interesting. I enjoy the different time periods and how that stuff plays out. I enjoy the Brigadier and Unit's presence. I don't think they're overused within it. I think they're used in an appropriate amount, and on the whole, it comes together as a pretty enjoyable story, but also one that is maybe a little bit lacking in terms of the use of its villains. Though this was the first story in which I did come to really quite enjoy the Doctor and Jo, so I do appreciate it for that. The Time Monster. I feel like some people are not going to be happy with me putting the Time Monster at this point in the list, and I hear you and I understand you, and you're wrong. This is a fun story. I just like this one, It's pretty enjoyable. Now, there's not a lot of substance to it, but also, that's the thing about the bottom half of this season, there isn't much substance, it's just mostly fun. And with this one, I really had a lot of fun with these different stories, the stuff going on with Atlantis, and the stuff going on with the Master and them messing with time. I just find it to be fun. Again, it's not like there's anything particularly meaningful about this one, but it's enjoyable. I like it, and I have fun seeing the Doctor and Jo get involved in this absolutely crazy situation. Now, what is worth noting is that this isn't a great story, it's a pretty good one, and that's mostly the case for the bottom 4 stories on this list, is that none of them are really great or even that good. They're just, pretty good, And that's the same for this one, where I like it, but there's nothing really great about it other than, our main characters who I just really enjoy. And the reason this one comes where it does on this list is because it's fun. I just like it. And I know there are plenty of people that are going to disagree with my position, and this is an unpopular place to put the Time Monster on a ranking of this season. And if you hate it, that is absolutely fine. But for me, this is just a fun, engaging, entertaining story that doesn't do a ton right other than our main characters and just being really kind of crazy. It's nothing great like the Daemons, but it's an enjoyable story you can throw on and just have a good time with. I can't imagine many people are going to be surprised with the Sea Devils being at the top of this list because, you know what? It's just good. Take the Silurian story, bring in a different kind of alien, even though they're not technically an alien. Do something a little bit different with them, bring in the Master, and what you have is the Sea Devils. This one just does things a little bit differently than the Silurians and feels a little bit different. And because you have this other villain involved, that kind of makes it more enjoyable. Because with the Silurians, you were heavily focused on this one thing, and that worked there, and I like that story. But this one, I think, maybe just slightly improves on it, because you have kind of multiple things going on, which help to keep you invested throughout the entirety of this serial. And that really works for me because this one is just a little bit shorter than the Silurians, has a little bit more going on, and balances it just a little bit better, I think. I don't feel like it hits the highs as much as the Silurians. I'm not 100% sure about that. They both have their high moments, to be fair, but I think on the whole, it comes together to be just a little bit stronger. And it does really help that the Doctor and Jo are quite good together, and the Master is such a great villain, and the Sea Devils definitely do their job. They are different to the Silurians. I do like the design of them, and it feels like it's not just copy-pasting the exact same thing. I do think it does enough things differently to make a distinction from this one and that story, and on the whole, I just like this one. I find it to be a really solid, enjoyable story. It does a lot right, and honestly, very little wrong. And that's that, Doctor Who Season 9 ranked. Be sure to leave your ranking down below if you feel like doing so, and if not, that is absolutely fine. I do hope to see you around this upcoming Sunday for my review of the 3 Doctors kicking off Doctor Who Season 10, and if not, that's 100% okay, so long as you know that I appreciate your time here today. And with that said, thank you very much for watching, take care, and have a lovely week.